PJ, thanks for coming. I know you've been like on a world tour for the last week and a half, right? Did you go to Germany or something too? After,
Yeah, Munich. Yeah, I've been all over the place recently. The last week was Munich, which is cool. We're working at the Champions League final game in Munich, the football game, doing some visuals for that,
oh,
which
that's fun.
was fun, crazy,
Yeah, yeah. And you
and
had to do
whatnot.
like it was like a live event you were making graphics for, or it was dynamic or something like that, right? You're gonna have to, you're on the spot making things for them.
Oh yeah, very much so. And yes, that's exactly right. Which is very complex. I mean, I knew that, but at that level, it's very, very complex. We had this. I don't want to take up too much time with it, but it seemed a lot more romantic and naively fun on paper, and then until we were in it. But did rehearsals of everything all week long, including our screen stuff. And on the final rehearsal, the audiovisual cabling glitched out, and so no one involved, including the people with all the money, could approve it. Except so they had this glitch video via an iPhone video capture, and that's what the band, Pepsi, all these people saw and agreed to. So we had to rebuild the animation to match that, and we could only see if it would work on the live event in front of 200 million people. So
Wow.
I'm a
That's why
little
you get the big
still
bucks, PJ.
a
No
little
pressure.
nauseous. I'm a little nauseous still even saying it. Like it wasn't my favorite 36-hour slot of all time.
Couldn't you?
Uh,
You could kind of appreciate like where some of the world's greatest stars have to get up and sing live or do something live in such a big stage and always kind of hit those notes. That professional nature that you kind of have to step into, like those are scary moments. Like you have to
they're
just
all
simply
a lot
depend on
more used to
instinct.
it than we were. We've done live event stuff, but not to the same frequency as the rest of this group, and so it was. So of course it fell us on us dipshits to get it right in the end. So for the people signing the check, but we got out of it. We didn't. We upset
I
as few people as possible, which is the hope.
I saw you VJ that off closing party. That I know the pressure is on to do that live event. Just
That's like a. It's like a. Yeah,
yeah.
two different things.
It's
Two
a
different
walk in the
things.
park
But
anymore.
but yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but
Well,
yeah.
thanks for coming on.
Possibly a more discerning audience.
I'm gonna maybe introduce you. I don't know if everyone kind of knows who you are, but PJ is the one of the founding partners of Laundry. Laundry, I don't know what anniversary you're on now. You must be approaching over 15 years, 20 years in
20.
business now. Yeah,
Mhm.
20 years of business. Um, you've seen a lot of seasons, not just like summer seasons and winter seasons and that kind of stuff. I know that your company has gone up and down in its size and growth. You've seen different locations. You've launched San Francisco more than once. You've launched offices kind of in different cities. Um, so I appreciate you kind of being on this conversation today because I want to pick your brain from like a perspective looking back a little bit. I I know that the industry is in flux and people are asking kind of big questions, but also like we're just going to hit like so that's one shift that's happening. But we're also just hitting like summertime, so we hit these very common kind of like seasonal changes as well. And sometimes they're hard to judge of like is this a short term problem or a long term problem when it begins, and we have this kind of bias in our mind that the present is always going to be true no matter what. We just project this moment forward. So that's the seasons and the like the longevity of business. I appreciate you kind of being here. Let us kind of bounce some ideas and questions off of you.
Sure. Yeah. Ask away. Anything.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just start with like maybe how things are going now. Like, if I want to say that a lot of people would love to imagine themselves 20 years in business and not only surviving the 20 years, but being more relevant in their 20th year of business than they've been in the previous years. So I think that's a rare kind of trajectory for our people in our industry anyway. Do you have give us any just like a brief, like maybe why and how you got yourself to that point where you can feel like you're catching a stride?
I think we just literally are too stubborn to give up. If I'm being completely honest, I think most of the time there's exceptions. I think everybody in this call has seen them in some capacity, but I rarely have I seen a studio close because they outright run out of business. Usually it's because you run out of stamina or just life more interest go somewhere else that you just don't want to run a business anymore. And because it's never ever easy from one person to, to the biggest ones out there. There's always kind of something. So you definitely have to have you got to be up for it all the way through. So
Yeah, I remember when the GFC hit, someone who ran a studio in Sydney and was, more experienced than me said, "There's going to come one crisis that you just don't feel rising up to." And I thought, he'll be out of this business in 2 years, but he's still going. He's now started three more businesses since then. He's addicted to it and can't give up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exact. And but I think I think more than ever, at least in our studio, we're all just really, really into it still and love it and love. I think we love MoGraph and production, but we also love the hunt for what's
Um,
new and to kind of evolve with the times and not wait or be, so I think that keeps us constantly moving, which I think probably helps a bit. Um, so that's but yeah, I mean it's literally always up and down as you describe it, with the highs and the lows and the seasons. And the thing that's really tricky, I think, for everybody is that those seasons used to kind of stay in the same places, but certainly the past few years they've shifted around year to year.
yeah.
We're like, sometimes it was summer, it was slow, sometimes it was right after Christmas, and even that stuff shifts around a little bit. I think mainly I'm no expert at this, and I think we've there's busy studios out there, there's slow ones, but it's I think motion work has spread itself out to much wider verticals that don't and behave differently as business categories that also make the seasons kind of shift.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that
Mm.
we used to be heavily dependent. I figure like the mass media was basically television and film. There wasn't
mhm.
any other platform to do it. And even when internet showed up and there was another platform, mass media was still in that. And there were some very specific seasons to television, quite literally a spring and fall releases. And so commercials would follow in that same season, right? New television events created high commercial need. Repeats repeated like maybe a refresh on those commercials. So you can almost depend on those 2 seasons, the spring and the fall releases to be your big hits in summer or not. And it had such an impact on everything. I think what we saw in the digital evolution, we saw more and more platforms that are 24/7, very relevant and what have you. And now we're just trying to keep up with major demand on all platforms. Um, but for some
Yeah,
reason, there are still weird seasons, and the unpredictable nature is really some of the game right now. Is to
I
like
mean,
not panic
there's
and wait.
the human side of it, which especially when you're on the other side, people have kids, they do shit in the summer or
That's
and
right.
or which is real, and that is sort of a consistency that I think creates a bit of a dip, and then they kind of separated. What I'm about to say, they separated, but now there seems like they're coming back together a little bit. But it used to be this thing with advertising agencies for us at least, which was a good amount of our work, where there was Ken and all this stuff that took people out of the office in June. It would make it a little bit quieter, and then all those people go on vacations and such in the summer, which made it also a little bit quieter. But then we had this thing where direct to brand just didn't really, which we do a lot of work and didn't really play by the rules of advertising agencies in a sense. So that made that go away. But then now those worlds seem to kind of be coming back together a little bit more. And so I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll sort of see. And then also, I know I'm not making this particularly easy or confusing for this room, but then there's also the thing of certain companies have like different fiscal year cycles that start at different times. And so some were quieter in the spring and then kind of get going around now, which we've seen in the past couple of years. So it's again, it's just that whole thing of like, there's a few different factors at play, at
Yeah.
least from what we've seen. And there's other companies that have it differently with retainers, or bigger companies are slower, smaller ones that can be more nimble and pick up on, much more and more frequent smaller projects along the way that kind of navigate around those dips. So
So let me ask you this. So there's got to be some sort of like sonar that you're using to look in front of the work that you're doing and recognize, oh, wait, it's going to be slow in a week or a month or so from now. Like our sales pipeline is slowing down, our accounts receivables are changing. There's something that's giving you some of that indicator, and then you can start seeing it sooner than later. And so you don't panic in the moment, right? You have a visibility in that.
Tim, you're trying to very, very innocently make me give you a compliment, but
Aren't-
yes,
Did I feed you well enough with that one? No, I
no,
think
no.
you could
What I'm
explain
about to
what.
say is,
Yeah.
so we use your cash flow system with Jason, so we know where our cash flow is or isn't, and it's usually 12 or 14 weeks out to know what's coming. But then also within that, we have our forecast of leads, with percentages of probability that also tell us what's ahead of us. And then we also have the total tally of those leads as far as what they add up to budget wise. Kind of gives us a good indicator of how slow or busy things are too, because if it hovers around a certain amount, which is pretty average, it lets us know that things are you know, even in spite of us what feels like slowness, the data tells us what is or isn't. Right now, that indicator for us is maybe a little bit slower, but not super crazy. Um, so, and then a humongous amount of it is just talking to our peers and sales reps and clients and just getting a sense of, without believing it, because like I could be super slow, but someone else, Ollie could be slammed or, whatever. It's everybody's different for different reasons, but
Yeah.
so we do have indicators, I guess, to answer your question. And it's saying emotionally it feels slow right now because we're going to the summer, but it's not saying that it's like bone dry slow. There seems to be a lot of movement out there from what we can see.
Yeah, it is kind of like a weather report. Like you can see indicators, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to rain in buckets or not.
No, because that stuff, jobs come and go. You pitch, who knows how that'll go. Any number of different things could still go incredibly poorly in theory. But the activity of it is pretty encouraging. That's been the kind of the weird thing this year is like with all AI and economics and all this stuff, everything says that it's going to be a fucked year, but it just the data hasn't shown us that at all.
Totally. The data, there's more and more reports that came out. The ANA just came out with something that said it's not even what we're seeing is the requirement to produce more for the same dollars. So looking for efficiency in the pipeline, but the award rates and the size of the awards isn't changing.
Yeah.
So I think if you're not playing the game right and you're not finding those efficiencies or recognizing it, that's where you might be feeling it. And I think everyone's feeling a little bit because this shift is happening, but it does seem like the project awards are coming at the same pace as they did last year. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
How much do Americans clock out over summer? Because in Australia, people clock out like for 2 months. Like January is like Christmas happens and then summer like hits and everyone's away all of January and then February people sort of come back to work, but then their brains don't really turn on till March. Is
It
like how
depends.
long?
Yeah, I think I'm sure everybody here has seen it very different ways. I think the more senior people tend to clock out a bit more, and the mid to junior level people don't as much and kind of work through it, or at least are more present. Which tends to be where most of our work comes from. Honestly, it's never from like the CMOs or brand managers or like super executive levels. It's always like art director went on Pinterest, saw something that we did, or have a project that's in a style that we do. So it helps kind of navigate that a little bit. I think it's sometimes.
But we are also workaholics in America compared to a lot of other countries. There's no doubt about
We
it.
sure are. I've
Yeah.
gotten that. I've gotten that a glimpse of that recently in the past few months going other places.
Yeah. I know. I'm thinking like, what did I really do? It's pretty competitive, and I think that we have this competitive nature um, in the U.S. in almost every market. So we do kind of have that curse that we're never satisfied, I guess. Kind of a curse
Yeah.
that we have.
We clock off competitively, like where everyone's gone for something.
We need more competition like that for sure. Okay, so there's because you can kind of like in a way look at your tea leaves, and we'll say like I know you're running RevThink systems, but a lot of people are looking at systems. The real key is to maintain it. I think that one of the biggest benefits that we do, and you guys probably appreciate in running the business, PJ, is the fact you're doing it every week. That weekly routine gives you the sense of when things are out of pattern, or you can slowly see the pattern growing, opposed to doing it monthly. Too much time in between it, you're not actually seeing the micro patterns and be able to respond soon enough. Um, were you gonna
Yeah,
say something?
that's absolutely right. I think to kind of just go right down the middle on this whole topic though of this call is, what to do with the downtime basically,
Yeah,
because those indicators tell us sometimes when it's going to be slow, and there's a tremendous amount of things. I mean, the obvious thing is the two obvious things that I think we all feel emotionally. It's like, holy fuck, we're going to go out of business. It's slow. What are we going to do? And we panic, right? And then the other thing is we're like, well, I got to downsize everything and anything humanly possible. In the back of my mind and my heart, I still think that even at the glimpse that something gets a little bit slower,
the
100%.
first thought you have, no matter what, no
Mm,
matter how
yeah,
successful
yeah,
you've
yeah.
been or whatever. Yeah, it's
Scarcity.
amazing, isn't it?
That's what I was talking about. And then, you get things like LinkedIn that I don't think are necessarily rooted in reality, but certainly amplify the living shit out of that, where you're like, oh my God, the algorithm's telling me really slower, fuck that. And then we even feel that at an even larger level, but we felt that when we're small, medium, and big, and when we're bigger, more mouths to feed, we feel that even more, and so on. But um, it literally, almost like the stock market, it goes down, it goes up. It literally never does not do that. Like
Yeah.
it always gets busier at some point. And so there's several things that we do and can do. I think reaching out to clients, reconnecting with people, not necessarily to shake them down for a job, but obviously that's the play no matter what. But get those lunches, get those emails out, get those calls, clean up work, share as much as you can online to remind people that you're there, or schedule your posts. You don't have to do it every day, and go super mental on all of that. Any new work that you want to, or avenues of work you want to explore, you haven't get into, particularly around AI, because that's not going anywhere. And then because I think what you can, I heard a visual effects supervisor I'm working with on something explain this to me the other day about the AI thing, but this applies to, I think, a lot of it. He was like, even not AI, he was like, a lot of it is learning new tools, to use the tools, not to make your team go from 100 people down to 10 people, but to be 100 people doing the work of 1,000 people, and
Yes.
what that can creatively yield. And it was
Yes.
like, yeah, motherfucker, let's do that. And so but I think it's hard to do that when you're in the middle of the fight of being busy or projects. You're just trying to make sure it gets done on time and on budget. But you have times like this that could be a little slower. Utilize it as best as you can. The If we have this, we've never had to use it, but if shit really goes sideways on your cash flow, you can, and I think, Tim, you're the one that got us into this. If it's going really like bad, but you have the vision to think and or see that it will get better later, but there's that gap, you can always pull credit lines in to help float you over to get over a particular hump, like a slow summer, if it's extra bad. And that's, so that's like, I mean, I'm not being all American and say go get some credit cards like everybody else, but there's all kinds of different things that can help. I
Yeah.
think weed
In a way,
through
like,
this.
so the pattern you're seeing and really kind of looking beyond just the sales awards, but your accounts receivable, like what your cash is available and accounts receivable, and then opportunities that way. Yeah, there are some ways of like buying time. The easiest way to think of it is the opposite of time is money, or the opposite of money is time. And you're trying to nuance the two of them in a season of slow. But
Yeah, I mean, I
always
think
say like don't finance your operating expenses. You'll never get it back. Like you're just burning
no,
money.
but I think the big thing is just to not do anything, right? Like that's
Yeah.
it's easy to be like, we're fucked, and just think about how bad it is, and it's usually a lot worse than you think it is. But I think it's an opportunity it's the hardest thing to do ever. Let me just say, like, to do work that's not just the project, but utilize the time because it's there.
Yeah.
It's honestly, in a way, it's kind of a gift.
Yeah,
Totally
I've
goes
had
against our nature
two
a little bit though, right? Because if you're panicking, then to go like, so what we should do is just chill out and do a bunch of R&D projects. Sherman was like, ah.
Yeah, but let me say, it's not just I mean, yes, absolutely, but it's not just that side. It's the outreach part too, because like with sales pipelines, you're not. I mean, if you get lucky, you have lunch with someone and they have a job immediately, but that's pretty darn rare. It's more like you're planting a sales seed that then blooms, 6, 9 months, 12 months. I've seen it have it be years later, but at the time, plant the seeds, like
At the time. Smart.
and let
yeah.
them. I mean, theoretically, we should all be doing that steadily all year long, but if you don't, you don't. And there's been other stuff going on, but now, do that now. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, I think, is what we've seen be effective in that side of
Yeah,
things.
I was talking with Hung from Bien, and we in Rekindle we had this idea of benchmarking, of getting you to benchmark like how many, while you're taking stock of the year. So like how many awards did we go to? How many things did we sponsor? How many social posts did we put out? And then Hung has this idea of taking it to creative benchmarking. So if you could take your creative leads in those downtimes and go, what sort of work do we want to get? And therefore, if we want to do more character animation work, what does that mean? How many directors do we need to know? How much of this do we know? How much do we need to post? And you could actually start, laying bets on what sort of marketing activity and what sort of social outreach your creative leads need to do in order to generate that new work and make that real. And another thing we've started doing at Mighty Nice is the Toyota principle, where Toyota doesn't change everything all the time. They keep 99% of it the same and they just change 1%, but they keep changing that 1%. And I think at Toyota, you're not allowed to suggest a new idea unless you own it. And so if you come up with some amazing new idea, you've got to take that and run with it and push it forward. So while you're doing R&D and while you're exploring new processes, you can say, hey, Gary, you want to do more character animation? Let's do a series of social posts on character animation. Let's meet some character animators. Or we want to do more Blender. Let's meet some Blender guys. I think there are ways of actually not only taking that R&D, but making a bet on it and then making someone own it and actually putting some actions into what are we going to do beyond you spending 2 weeks noodling around on a computer.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. For us, I think let me just say there's no one way. It's just what works for you. And what is, in fact, I've seen it every which way be successful in scenarios like this. But one thing that we're very careful of and have had great success and failures with, I should say, actually, is when we just take the time to do a spec project we want to do. There's a 50-50, I don't know, maybe 50-50, let's just say for this argument, 50-50 chance that it's worth it, because it could be satisfying for our creatives, but have absolutely no application for any of our clients. So we do take the time to look at what our clients are doing more of, need, want, and figure out where the overlap is for what we would enjoy doing as well. So we're a bit strategic that way. But then it makes it an easier sell to say, hey, Apple, you've been doing a ton of abstract 3D shit. Look what we've been doing. This is our version of what we like and how we like to do it, and see if there's a little bit more of a targeted overlap that way. And that has done wonders for us.
So it sounds
Um,
to me like you have recognized that it's important to lean on relationships. So like in a
I
slow
was
season, I have time to go to lunch, I have go to time to breakfast, I can ask questions, I can put things in front of people, knowing that it's not about the immediate project, but there's like long-term wins there.
100%. And I was just literally going to go there with that was that I think the temptation always, and you're going to hear that this comes up everywhere, and certainly LinkedIn is to just like go wide with your spray of outreach. We just haven't seen it work. We're a lot more successful when it's smaller, targeted towards brands that do similar work that we do and clients that we've worked with before, and putting a humongous amount of our attention there because it just gets us projects faster. Um, and I know there's arguments of like, well, I need more clients, I need new clients, and certainly, of course, and again, don't be afraid to reach out to them. I'm not saying don't do that, but like to be like we've done it where we're like, all right, we're reaching out to 1,000 new people,
Yeah.
and with very broad or vague strategy towards that. It just people can smell it. They can smell that you're just reaching out, but that there's no research or overlap or you know commonality.
Reason.
Yeah, reason.
Yeah, maybe another like not so intuitive thing, but is super helpful is because it is the traveling element when it's slow. Because a lot of people in the scarcity mentality think of like, I have to save every dollar and not realize and capture the items and expenses that have return on development or return on investment and that don't. Even like in your employee retention, to realize, well, the ones I should keep have ROI attached to it, and the ones I should let go of are the ones that are I could replace or need to. That's the employee side. I feel like there are other areas that you're kind of recognizing of like, yeah, go to a conference, network, get in front of people, um, go
Yeah,
travel to a
I
different
would
city
say.
and
I
see,
mean,
clients you don't often get to see because you're too busy.
yeah. I think FaceTime is golden beyond measure. Because if nothing else, most of the your competitors won't, and so it's like that's easy. It's like, well, most people won't do it. Most people won't post the work on LinkedIn and Instagram. So you're like, well, that's just an easy way to stand out. I can kind of almost bet on most studios' lack of proactivity. So I'm like, game on. But one thing I will say, and it sounds counterintuitive for anybody that knows me a little bit. I've been doing a lot of conferences recently, but design conferences do not yield us very much work. And so if you're looking for work, I wouldn't put your your money there.
Yeah.
It's very inspiring creatively, and that's the value for us. But it doesn't get us much in the way of new business.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's smart. Like just anywhere, every and is not the answer. But if you're looking for growth, you got to go where are the people that can teach you something. So I can imagine
or where
today
you
you
can
guys do
provide
something.
value for them. That's because that's the whole thing. I think it's very tempting as business owners to go internal and be like, what I need. And yes, we all need to make a living. It's what I need. But the vehicle to get to there faster is to find and create value for people that frankly sign the checks.
Yeah. But so like you and I sat in that one session where the Javi was talking about when it came to AI at
Hmm.
off. And off is a design conference. That's what it's for. Not a lot of clients there, but you have to admit getting access to just that one workshop was so amazing to see the progress, the understanding, and the personal growth part of it. And maybe there's something to say of like, personal growth is something you can also and should also take advantage of in a slow season. That time to educate yourself and lean into that is very important.
Yeah, I guess I would. Okay, so let me say I wouldn't. I was like giving it like 100% knock on design conferences for new business. Let's
Yeah.
give it like 80%, and then that last 20% is to learn. There holds windows to learn new technology that you can bring as a skill set to to clients and such. Because there's definitely we haven't been able to use Creo for client work, but we have been able to use quite a bit of AI tools for paying client work recently, and going to conferences to learn a bit about that is
Yeah.
humongously valuable.
just
And while
so
you're at a
even
conference, you can meet new clients.
yeah, well,
In
Because
the
they're they are
if you're in the city,
cities.
yeah,
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 cities have clients.
sure.
yeah, yeah, using that strategically. So to kind of recap a little bit, I think number one is like you have to recognize the seasons for the reality that they are, right? So not just like look at the clouds in the sky and try to predict the weather, but if you can look ahead and have some sort of analysis. And I love the idea you had there of like, don't just look at your own data. Go ask your friends, competitors, other people in your network, what are you seeing? What readings are you getting in your data set too? So that you're not looking at a micro event, but looking at something macro and trying to make smart decisions that way. But the don't panic has got to be one of the first pieces of advice, like because it's the first thought we have is scarcity, and you have to give
Yeah, I
yourself to
mean,
be analytical.
listen, I can't get up here and say that I don't, or you're never gonna not panic. I think
Yeah,
it's more of a like find something to occupy your time than just
yeah.
say I'm not gonna panic anymore. Like that's
Maybe it's
highly unrealistic.
maybe the good advice is the idea of don't panic. That's not very realistic. It's get beyond the panic sooner than later. Maybe that's the better way of saying it. Like panic and then breathe and then start thinking analytically
Keep
again.
yourself busy.
Yeah.
That's the so
um, then it's like be smart. Hey, if you're looking at it and you have to restructure your team or restructure your services to meet needs, start looking at that in the slow season. Like, is this a
yeah,
transitional season where you should be transitioning your business, or just a summer? And the clients are out fucking around with their kids. They're going to come back eventually. Don't worry about it. Just kind of do it, but do some analysis and figure out that part of it. And the way to do that is actually get your ass out of your seat and go talk to those clients, meet them face to face, have coffees, catch up with them, things that you can't do when you're busy. That's where some of that analysis comes from, is just that FaceTime or that those outreaches.
definitely. And I think it's and yes, that I totally agree with you there. I think for anybody here that's at the beginning of their studio ownership too, I can tell you that like even had I been on calls like this and heard it from a person like anybody here, it's still so hard to like get comfortable with that with until you really experience it. But you go through enough other cycles and you do kind of get a little more used to it and it feels a little less like the end of the planet.
Yeah.
But it's I wouldn't I'd have a really hard time believing that it's anything but doom and gloom
You're the
if
worst
it
case
were like the
scenario.
first or second year of laundry and we were having the same conversation. So I will say it's just hard to
Yeah.
And
But I
and
think
really
that's
enjoy that
okay.
enjoy that half day in between being too busy and not busy. There's always like that 4 to 6 hour period where you go, ah,
that's me
yes.
this week.
And
Yeah,
then it creeps in. You go, ah.
Yeah.
yeah, I quite so. Next week I'll be an anxious mess about business, I'm sure, but
And then, I mean, to that point, PJ, I think that's where you're saying, your peers are really great for that. Where, if you're young in business, it's good and important to ask somebody else in business, how did you get through it? What's going on? We're doing this in a general conversation way, but I know personally that you sit down with business owners, and I know other people get a chance to kind of like meet and network with other business owners just to understand what those decisions need to be like, and to kind of get your head out of the sand and start thinking about the future, finding a new vision, finding some encouragement, so you're not just panicking, or worse, doing nothing at all, but actually start getting into action. Sometimes it takes a little bit of help from your friend to do that. So another
yeah,
if
I
you're going
think
to find
it's
some help.
as I didn't do this very well for I think most of our studio lifespan, but I don't think I think it's finding a few peers that you can open up with and be vulnerable and honest with to have those types of dialogues, understand what's going on. Because I can't tell you how many times I've met other studio owners that I don't know very well, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, things are great. We're busy," and you're like, so I think there's a little bit in competition. There's a little bit of a thing of like not wanting to show weakness to strangers and putting on a bit of a facade, which I get fully. I think sometimes we need to tell ourselves even that to power through. But if you can find a peer group that can have those more honest interesting dialogues, that's
Yeah.
everything.
I find that, and I'm thankful for the confab groups that we have because it feels like that these groups of 6 or 8 that get together on a weekly basis for a quarter, they start to form those bonds and they can rely on each other because they've shared some truth that it keeps on
Mm-hmm.
going. It's great to just have a network.
Yeah.
Maybe the last thing I heard you say is just like, I'll just use the word development. That might be like team development, personal development, business development, or whatever, but kind of like lean into some sort of growth. This is the moment, like take advantage of the season that you're in and look at the future one way or another so that you can kind of maybe all three, but at least kind of find something that says, okay, listen, we can't just be all doom and gloom. Let's go make something out of nothing if we have to. And asking, junior people to step up into a senior role and not hire a freelancer could be a point of development, or reaching out to a client for a 2 year, it might pay itself out, pay dues in 2 years, but to know that you haven't had a chance to reach out to them. Okay, I'm not going to be a fool. I do have time. I better go out there and use that time wisely for the long run and the short run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
agree.
think that, many of us, again, like wish that we can get to that 20-year mark, knowing that everything's going to be okay. I mostly appreciate you saying, to be honest, you kind of have to get used to that feeling, and just knowing what to do after that feeling comes, and knowing that you will persevere is the key. But to start off with, first thing you said, perseverance, 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 right? Like pretty much, not giving up is the answer no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, and I'll admit, I always talk about this, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but a humongous amount of me navigating the anxiety of it is just keeping busy. Again, I've said that 3 or 4 times here, but like from the postings online to the outreach to and like literally doing anything to not sit there and panic, basically, which in the case of business is usually pretty helpful because if you're doing something, you're doing more than nothing, which is generally a good thing for trying to run a studio.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that I learned from Garson Yu when I worked at Yu and Company, the guy he just wouldn't stop. It's awesome. He's still going today. He's like an intergenerational bunny. He just keeps on going. But we would hit very slow seasons in the film cycle. And I swear, like he walked with total confidence and would grab an internal project or some artists or do some sort of outreach that felt like so unnatural. And he kind of just knew, like, no, I'm going to be in business. Like failure is not an option. So I might as well just know what I'm best at and go do that, even without someone else's permission. Just go make something happen. And he leaned into so many opportunities with great artists, great creative directors over the years, amazing relationships with film directors, all came from like slow seasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, I mean, so two things you just gave me an idea about or a thought on. So agree. Um, it's really tempting when it's slow to be like, all right, I'm gonna pivot the business over here to something, right? And I get that, and certainly we all have varying interests, but I mean, I absolutely despise the whole positioning word thing. But each studio does what they do really, really well, and that's why they're there, big or small. And so I think it can be, and the consistency of whatever it is said studio does is why they're busy when they're busy. And so doubling down on that to create that and voice that consistency ultimately creates trust that gets you to projects and
Yeah.
billings faster. I think it's a really dangerous path to go down to do a completely new business pivot, especially when it's slow under that pressure, and it takes forever to build up a new vertical. So I would, and it's a lot easier to build that vertical off the momentum of being busy than off of it being slow. Like
Yeah.
it's and certainly like let me be very specific. Like it's easier to be like, hey, client, I'm working with you. We're doing a bunch of branding work. Oh, you need immersive? We've been wanting to get into that. Great. Let's add that on as an add-on to this. We're already working a project you trust. It's great. Sick. But if you have nothing going on project-wise and you're like, I'm going to put all my time towards this new immersive initiative that no one knows we do, that a ton, you can just see it's going to be, but it's
I love it.
tempting. It's tempting to be
So
like,
tempting.
here's the time to reconfigure,
I've got it.
I
whatever.
caught up with a guy
Right.
recently who, like, I probably worked with him 12 years ago or something, maybe 8 years ago or at earliest. But when I worked with him, he was like 25 people, and he hired me to see if I can't grow his business into sectors he should have never touched. And then after I analyzed it, and it's specifically the way he was an entrepreneur, it just wasn't gonna. But he didn't take my advice. He got rid of me, and he said, "Tim, you don't understand. For about 7.5 years, all I did was basically do a bunch of work I had no business in doing. I wasn't thriving in it. I felt like I was going to get me somewhere. I never got there." And so he went from 25 people to 250 people to prove that he can do it. And now he's back to 50 and saying, I should have just stuck with it. Like, he should just enjoyed going from 25 to 50 and then thriving instead of just going crazy thinking there's something better. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Like, there's always something better. Like, it's okay. Like, do what you do and do it well. So it's good to know that, like, the last 4 years or so, he's been where he should be and really, really enjoying it. But those 7 years, I think he would want those back. So I'm with you, PJ. Like, you
I would
can't
just say, don't get
like
me
the
wrong.
work
I'm
and
not
run.
saying this just to talk shit. It's because I've tried it and had it go horribly badly, and so I'm definitely trying to save people from mistakes
Yeah.
I've attempted.
Some people can easily get to scale. It's what they're meant to do. But
Mhm.
most of us
Or,
really
or,
love
or
what we
pivot.
do, and or pivot, yeah. But you should just know that about yourself and make sure it's really clear. Besides just running in whatever the industry wants to jump that way, probably not the smartest reason to pivot. My friend, thank you so much for giving us this perspective. I appreciate you being on this
Yeah,
call with us.
absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah. And
Yeah. And
PJ's in community. You can,
how does
if you're looking for him, you can just look on DM him in community. And if you don't know, jump on PJ's Instagram. There's a lot going on in that Instagram feed. And I know it's pretty
So
inspiring.
the,
As a matter of fact, I discovered this billboard in Barcelona. I'm just walking down the street and I see this big, gigantic image. And I'm thinking, you know what? That looks like PJ. And there your name was right below it. You were part of some art display or art exposition during that week. So that's your Instagram feed making you even more famous. So people can follow you there.
awesome. Well, thanks you guys so much, and
Of
to the
course.
entire room for humoring this jibber jabber. So
That's great. Appreciate it.
very grateful.
And Matt, thanks for chiming in. I always appreciate you being part of this conversation, keeping the magic happening, and at least meeting PJ face to face so that we know that you're a real person, not just AI pixels on a screen somewhere.
I'm your
Matt's
first
real.
generated guy. Yeah, but it's been a year since Brisbane. We'll always have Redland Bay.
Yeah.
All right, good to see you all this week. We'll be back next week. Actually, I'm going to come in next week from Dash Bash. I'll be at the conference on Wednesday night, so we'll give you some view and some look into that. But until next week, thank you all very much. PJ, I'll catch up with you soon. I appreciate
All
it.
right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
All right, guys.
See you, PJ.
Thanks.
Bye.